Hello and welcome to another video. In this video we are going to talk about your final submission, the Cozy Place. And I would like to explain what is the assignment, the rules, and what I expect to see on this assignment. We have to talk a little bit about the evaluation criteria. And also, I'm going to briefly describe how to work with real-world scaling and human measurements and a little bit of referencing to help you to nail this concept of working with real scale. It doesn't matter which software you are going to choose for this assignment. You have to learn how to work with real scale because these days, every single rendering engine require us to work with real scale in order to be able to achieve very realistic results and in order to simulate lights like in the real world. This assignment started with this concept that is no place like home. And we spent a lot of time in the last few years at home, I would say, and this is something very close to our reality, right? So I decided to give this assignment based on this stay-at-home principle. And not only because of that. That was just part of the original idea. The second part of this big idea was to try to suggest the students to put something from themselves in this assignment. So I would like to see some personal things. I know this is a little bit sensitive. If you are not comfortable with that, it's totally fine. But I'm not asking to disclosure anything private or something like that. The idea is to create a personal place that represents something personal about the person who created that. And this personal representation don't have to be explicit, like putting a photograph of you or your family. This can be very subtle, I would say. This can be a kind of, you can bring things to this image. You can bring things to this representation. Like if you like certain things, you can use those things on the assignment. If you enjoy certain types of things, your personal interests, if you like a dog, I would ask you to not put a dog, because this is not about modeling something complex or as complex as a animal or a person. I don't want to see person, by the way. I don't want to see an animal. I don't want to see things like that. I want to see a place, okay? But to be honest, that is a major requirement, and this requirement is I want something realistic, okay? And this is a challenge. This is probably the biggest challenge, on this course, because although this course is a introduction to 3D for some of you, you will be capable of doing that, because I will explain the rules and the things I need. You don't have to do like amazing modeling. I will talk about modeling. I will give you some personal tips on how to deal with the quality of the modeling itself. So you don't have to feel pressure to do something crazy here, okay? I'm looking for a representation, and realism is not only about doing things like in the real world, like a one-to-one translation, okay? Is more about the way we put things, the way we tell the story itself, okay? So what does realistic mean? So first of all, the scale of the objects, they have to be very close to the real world. And so you don't have, again, you don't have to translate things like on a millimetric translation, like 1-to-1. But you have to use real measures. If the table have 80 centimeters high, you have to do that on your modeling using that measure to do the modeling. Okay, don't worry, again, this is not about modeling with that amount of precision. It's more about how you are going to resize things, how you are going to distribute things on the scene to be close to the human reference. Okay, yes, if you are familiar with the concept of modeling using any type of scale like centimeters or meters or whatever, and if you have already any ability with this kind of thing on your preferred software, you are free to do that. Okay, the second thing is materials. The materials should be realistic. So I need to see that glass is glass, wood is actually wood, but not all glasses are the same, not all woods are the same. So we have to represent the things using the best possible representation of materials. And to do that, don't worry, you don't have to create everything from the ground. Of course, the modeling you have to, but the textures and the materials you don't have necessarily to create things from scratch. Okay, you can use libraries, you can use textures from the internet. So I'll talk about what I allow you to do and what I do not allow you to do. Okay, the third thing is realistic lighting. Realistic lighting is going to be easier to achieve if you follow the first two things, if you have real scale objects and if you have realistic materials applied to those objects. Okay, so this is extremely important because this realistic lighting is what is going to give us the feeling, the look and feel of the scene, and is going to trick our eyes to see more, I would say. Okay. As part of the submission, you can, if you want, include a little bit of text explaining your idea, explaining the inspiration, the process, why you decided to put certain elements there. That is not important at all for the grade. I have to be very honest, this is not going to influence your grade in any possible way. But this is optional. If you want to do that, I'll be very happy because I like to hear from my students when they talk about the process, when they review the idea and they develop the idea and show this thing to me. What you can or cannot do. Okay, so first of all, I will not allow you to use ready-made objects. You have to model the object yourself. Okay, I want to see screenshots of the development of the process, and I don't want to see things that you found on the internet. Oh, I love this chair, so I'm going to use that. So no, please don't do that. Okay, I will have a few ways to discover if you take things from the internet, but I don't want to do this kind of thing. This is not the purpose of this course. Okay, if you are aiming to have excellent grades, just because you put a lot of things together and push a button, I think you are doing this thing wrong. Okay, you are understanding this entire program and your future on a wrong way. Okay, please don't do that to yourself. You're not going to do that to myself because I already have a career. I already have knowledge, so I know how to model stuff. Okay, you probably not. Okay, if that's the case, please don't do that. If you do, I might suspect, but I cannot fight with you or argue in that case. So please be honest. Okay, if I look to the other assignments and see the quality of the modeling, and then suddenly I see a very professional model object, I will have like two reactions. First, you had a huge jump between one job and another, or you decided to pick things from the internet. Okay, so if you do that, at least be honest if I ask you. Okay, This is not the purpose. Please do not use things from the internet. If you have a chair, if you want to put this chair, try to model the thing yourself. Okay? Let's talk about the textures. Textures and materials. You can use textures from Quixel. You can use materials from Quixel. You just have to install Quixel. I already showed you how to do that. So we talked about the Quixel Bridge, which is a software that if you have a Epic Games account, you will be able to use. If you go straight to Quixel and do the account, you will not be able to use. So pay attention to that. You need a Epic Games account, okay? Otherwise, you will have to pay for the license. I'm saying that once again because I saw people ignoring this in the past, and if you decide to ignore, it's up to you. You can use any software you want. So I have a lot of familiarity with Maya, which is today one of my major softwares. Is not my main software for certain things, but most of the things I do using Maya. So Maya, 3ds Max, Cinema 4D, Blender. So you are allowed to use any of those, okay? If you plan to use anything else, please let me know, because those are the softwares I know the most. I already worked with many other softwares, so the software is not a problem for me. But I need to say that once again. So I want you to work with what the industry is working. If you feel comfortable working with Blender, I totally understand, but Blender have a lot of limitations, okay? I work with Maya because I trust in Maya, and I know that I can deal with any possible limitation that the software have, and I know how to overcome that, and I know how to produce very fast. And this is why the industry relies on Maya, although that thing is sometimes a little bit complicated, sometimes buggy, sometimes all the times very expensive. I totally know that, but again, we are here to learn, and I'm here to teach skills from the industry to people who want to go to the industry. So that's why we use Maya. So please, if you have the intention to use anything else, pay attention to that and let me know beforehand, okay? I talked about Quixel Bridge, and I will talk once again to use Quixel Bridge for free as a student, and to connect Bridge to Maya and be able to use all the materials. You need an Epic Games account, otherwise you will not be able to connect Quixel Bridge and Maya, okay? If you have any problems, please pay attention to this very small but very significant detail, because Bridge and Maya can be connected if and only if you have a Epic Games account. How the assignment should be delivered. So I want to see 2 final images with 2 different lighting conditions. So night and day, for example. Using exactly the same camera, same textures, same objects, exactly the same everything. Please do not move the camera. Do not be tempted to move anything or change anything on your scene. I want to see exactly the same scene with 2 different light conditions, okay? The images can be post-processed in Photoshop or Krita or whatever you want, but you have to give me the original one that you rendered from Maya, and after that, the image that you changed using Photoshop or any other software, okay? The images should have the maximum size of 1090 it's a full HD size, okay? So 1080 p. So you should produce the images using this size, And the minimum size is 8G, so 1280 by 720. Okay, so basically I'm giving you a maximum and minimum, but you need to use 16 by 9. Please keep the preference of using the biggest size if you have any complications due to the render or render time or whatever, but you will have a lot of time, by the way. Okay, so plan ahead. If you feel that you are not going to deliver, you can reduce the size, but reduce the size is not going to solve completely your problem. Okay, so pay attention to that. The images need to be necessarily 16 by 9. I don't want you to use any vertical renders or cut the image or do whatever. Okay, I want to see a horizontal image. Please pay attention to that. Okay, I also want to see one wireframe image rendered. Okay, it's not a screenshot of the you know, the window. Okay, so you can use AI wireframe or AI utility. I already showed how to use both of them. So if you go to Moodle, there's videos there showing how to use both. And I recorded videos. Some of my recent classes, I talked about that. Okay. If you are using Blender, you can use the wireframe overlay, which sucks, but it's probably the best what Blender can do. This is one of the many limitations of Blender. Okay. You should use for this image exactly the same camera that you use on the first two images. So it's exactly the same scene rendered 3 times. One, it's a daylight, another one, it's a night light, and another one, it's a wireframe render. So when I flip the PowerPoint, I would like to see changing, you know, the light changing and the renderings, but I don't want to see a different camera. I don't want to see a different angle of camera. Okay. I also want 5 to 10 images showing the process of building this scene. So full screen shots of your computer. Okay, I want to see you doing the things, modeling the things. That's the way I know that you are going to work on the project and you are going to keep track of this thing. The evaluation criteria, which is super important, is comprised by basically 5 different criteria. Okay, the first one is the idea or the sketch quality, so 1 point. So your sketch can be made by hand, or you can do a collage, or you can do whatever you want. If you're not comfortable doing sketches, it's totally fine. Okay, but I want to see exactly your idea, okay, exactly what you are trying to do. If you want to do a collage, if you want to do something very rough, this is okay, but I want to see your idea, and you should do the sketch before doing the 3D assignment, of course, but I'm saying that because someone is going to ask me eventually. Okay, so please do the sketch before. The sketch is a tool to keep you on track. Okay, I want to see realism. So the realism of the objects and materials are super important to me. What that means is I don't want to see polygons. Okay, I already talked about that. So if you want to get rid of the polygons, you can use the subdivisions of Maya, or if you're using any other software, you can use the subdivision modifier to make this object be more realistic. But to do that, you have to model a very, very good base mesh. Otherwise, you are going to subdivide a bunch of weird things. So keep in mind that to subdivide something, you have to use a very good topology on your mesh. Okay. The realism of the materials, of course, is something that you can very easily overcome with, Bridge. Quixel Bridge creates the material because it uses very realistic textures. And you just have to apply the textures on the materials. One quick tip here is most of the textures coming from Bridge, they have displacement. If you use displacement, you will have 2 problems. First of all, if your mesh is not prepared to use displacement, the displacement is going to be very, very, very weird. Okay, So my suggestion is try to avoid displacements, okay? You can use if you want on certain parts, on very specific parts, if you really think that you need, okay? Otherwise, don't use displacement or you will have problems on your renders, okay? Believe me, I've been there before. The lighting itself is also very important to me, so I don't want to see a lot of noise. I don't want to see a lot of darkness. I want to read the objects. I want to take the impression that, oh my God, this is like, I don't know, 10 in the morning. I want to see the sun, or I want to see the shadows correctly. I want to see the lighting inside this environment done on a proper way. Okay, and I'm going to give you some tips on how to model a very quick room. I will show you how to model some, not how to model some objects, but the objects I already modeled for my scene, okay, when I also explain about the scale in a few minutes, okay? So balance is also very important to me. I would like to see something really good without having a lot of objects. So please pay attention to that. Plan very well the angle of camera that you are going to choose, what exactly you are trying to show on this assignment, okay? And last but not least, the storytelling. I love stories, so I would love to see something on your scene that tells a story about you, about yourself, about your favorite things, you know? This can be very subtle, this can be very creative, this can be explicit if you want, but it don't have to, okay? I have to be clear here. You don't have to put on this scene, on this assignment, things that you feel that are so personal that nobody should know, okay? I'm not asking that. I'm asking something personal on the sense of showing meaning on this scene. So a little bit of, it's a opportunity for storytelling, basically. I would like to give you some tips and, you know, help in this process, showing you my personal process. Okay, so first of all, the most basic thing I usually do before I start anything like this is to ask some questions. So the assignment is very clear. I have to create a space. I have to create an interior of a place. So I ask a lot of questions to myself. So what do I like to do when I'm not working? Where I would like to be, you know, or where I usually go to relax my mind? What is the most inspired and personal activity that I usually do? What is my personal passion? My you know, the things I really love to do. And they can be, but they not necessarily should be related with the work, okay? But for example, in my case, it's a little bit tricky because I like art, but I also teach art or some topics related with art. I love digital art, so I do that to relax, but I also teach that. So my personal life and my work, they kind of walk hand by hand. So the last question is how to put all those things on a picture that represents a very small, comfortable place. So you have to pay attention to that. So the cozy place needs to be as realistic as possible, even if it's not real. What I mean by that is, if you think about a place that you don't own, or you never been before, or a place that you just saw on a magazine and you want to go there, you know, that's totally valid, okay? The only thing you have to pay attention is you have to think about the rules of the assignment, okay? It must be realistic, cozy, small, personal, and simple, okay? Keep in mind that those things, that they should guide your development. The first thing I usually do is I usually go to Pinterest or Dribbble or any other sites. I have a lot of sites to inspire myself, and I do a very simple research about cozy place, for example, on Pinterest, and I can see a lot of images and they have something in common. Okay, some of them show like a big space, but usually a small space is the choose one. So there is always a place to sit or to be for a while, you know, some place that you can be comfortable for quite some time. Okay, obvious that if you look to those images, you will see that there's a lot of big places. Please pay attention to that. You don't have to model an entire room. I don't want to see an entire room. You have to concentrate things on a very small space, okay? Because this is a strategy to not make your life a living hell. Otherwise, you will have to model a lot of things. You will have to illuminate a huge space, and this is going to impact the render time. I will never ask you to do that. I don't want that. I want something very small, very concentrated in one specific area. Okay, so some of those images here, they're very inspiring, very cool, but they are kind of far from the assignment, to be very honest. Okay, and then I usually, my next step is go to IKEA. IKEA is awesome, so thank you very much IKEA for that. And I go to IKEA and I try to list things. Creating lists is something that helps me to organize my work. So I analyze the scene and I try to make lists. So this scene have sofas or armchairs and luminaries and rugs and plants and frames, pillows and cushions and closet, blah, 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 blah. So I do a big list. This list is huge, okay? But I don't want to make a living room. I did that in the past because I worked with architectural visualizations a few years ago, actually for many, many years. And I usually did that quite a lot. So I go to a place and I do lists, and then I try to decompose this list and make the list simpler, okay? According to my needs, of course. So my final list of objects and the description of the scene. This is important because it's a way to create images on your head and keep the track. I want a corner of a very small place, okay? Which objects do I need? So for the decoration, the room itself, of course, a window because I want to see outside. I love to do that. I would love to sit in front of a window and contemplate the nature. For example, I remember when I lived in Hagenberg 2 years ago, when I moved to Hagenberg, I loved to have my breakfast in front of this window from my kitchen, looking to the woods. So that was awesome because seeing the trees and taking my coffee, that was very peaceful. And I used to listen music, and sometimes I read as well because I was there alone. I moved to Hagenberg, by the way, on the beginning of August, which, by the way, is a abandoned place. It's a monastery. It's quite amazing, and I felt very lonely. But those moments, they still on my memory because I kind of like that. So I got very familiar with Windows, and of course during the lockdowns, many lockdowns, I kind of felt in love by Windows anyway because I had no other option. Okay. So armchair, lamps, probably a bigger one and a smaller one to put on top of, I don't know, a side table, and a bigger one because I always dreamed to have like a bigger lamp on my living room. I don't have one yet, but I will. A rug. Rug is a very cool way to fill the space, okay? And I want a rug because I want to experiment a little bit using a plugin that exists inside Maya, and it's called XGen, okay? It's used to create fur, feathers. You can create a lot of things. So it's also very useful to create hair on characters. And you saw this plugin in action like millions of times, probably because a lot of movies, they use the same plugin to do grooming on the characters. So fur, you know, feathers, hair, and this kind of thing. But you can also do rugs, and this is something I would like to try. Of course, I don't know if this thing is going to work yet because I just model object. The last time I used something like that, it was on 3ds Max and a few years ago. Okay, after that I never used again. but it's going to be interesting. I would like to have a big plant. This plant is going to draw attention to the corner of the room. I'm going to do again a corner. Okay, it's a very small place. This armchair or this chair, whatever, is kind of close to the window, and I would take this picture, trying to frame the chair, the window, a little bit of the room, you know. Pillow, it's very nice to have on living rooms or bedrooms, whatever. Every cozy place should have pillows, I think so. Picture frame, maybe I don't know, a painting that I like, I'm not sure. Side table and a coffee table if I have space to do that. It's just a way to fill a little bit the space. Okay, so those are my objects. And for when it comes to personal things, so I have a book. I would like to show my favorite book. Hat, because I like hats. Clock on the wall, because time is something very important to me, although I hate that. A glass of coffee, because I drink coffee like crazy. A piece of candy or chocolate, because my life have to have some sweetness, I would say. And a pen and a piece of paper, because I like to take notes from time to time. And candles, because I like candles for some reason. And the scene description is the corner of a very cozy living room or bedroom where I would like to read, drink coffee, take notes, listen to music, and look at the world outside. Okay, I want to create a contrast between the isolation of the world, so mine and the rest of the world. I imagine warm colors with balanced lighting, nothing too bright. And I'm saying that because I'm not sure if I'm going to do 2 renders. You have to do 2 renders because it's a way to exercise lighting and rendering. I'm not going to create a full tutorial showing how I did that, because you already know how to render, how to use Arnold, how to output images, how to compose. You already have this knowledge. Okay, the only thing I would like to stress is everything needs to be realistic but simple, as simple as possible. Okay, don't show too much, don't do a huge room. Okay, I don't want to see a huge environment. What I mean by huge is an entire room is huge. Okay, focus on something small, on a corner, on a place, on a very small place where you can put your things. Okay, and that is what I want. Okay, I'm trying to limit this radius of action to the maximum of 3 or 4 meters, not more than that. So how to work with real world scale using human measurements and references. So this is the only part of this video that I'm going to show you inside Maya, because there is something there that I'm going to give you. Okay, if you want to use, I'm going to give you a tool, and I'm going to show you how to work with this tool to model real world scale objects. Okay, so let's jump into Maya and I will show you that. I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about the modeling itself, because you already know how to model. I just want to give you some personal advice on how to use real world scale. So I already model all my objects. As you can see, everything is inside groups, or if they are extremely simple, they don't have to be inside groups. So for example, the rug is just a polygon plane, you know, and I will use XGen, so this guy here, to kind of create fur on top of this guy to make something fluffy, but I'm not sure if this is going to be cool. So I modeled like one pillow here, so let me isolate this guy. I modeled this thing using cloth inside Maya. I'm not going to show you how to do that because this is beyond the scope of this course, but you can try to play with that if you want. So if you go to effects, so one of the effects that you have here is end cloth. Okay, so you can use this effects to create or to simulate, for example, cloth falling on top of the chair. If you want to put cloth here, so this might be very interesting. So for example, let me see. So this is the armchair. The modeling itself is extremely simple, okay? And it was made to be subdivided. I have like very simple polygons, as you can see, and they are kind of, you know, faceted because right now they are not being subdivided. But if I move the object, you see that it becomes beautiful. If you want to get rid of the jagged lines on your viewport, you can try to use this option here called multi-sample anti-aliasing. So you see an even better version of the objects on your screen. And this is cool. This is a very simple chair, but since this is a hero object, I decided to put a bit of love on him. So I used a bunch of polygon modeling techniques. And I also used a little bit of sculpting. So this is a very cool tip. So if you smooth the objects, you can still go here and you can use the relax and you can use the smooth tool to kind of bring a little bit of disturbance to the surface of the object. I'm not sure if this thing is going to be apparent when I apply materials, but I don't care. Okay, and how do I know that the objects that I've been modeling, they are following the real measures? So first of all, if you go to IKEA right now and select any chair, armchair, sofa, table, whatever, you will notice that they have the measures. Okay, they will give you the measures in centimeters. And if you go to the settings inside Maya, so Windows, Settings and Preferences, here on display, you will see, actually not display, settings, okay? You will see that Maya works with centimeters as linear measures. And this can give you a very good tip on how to work with centimeters inside Maya. So for example, the chair is not huge. Our grid is quite small. So during this course, I explicitly ignored the size of the object because I was not caring too much about the real scale. Now I care a lot about real scaling. Okay, so since this object, since this grid here have exactly 1 centimeter, so 1 by 1, you know, if I create a cube, this cube have exactly 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. So what that means is this cube is exactly the size of this grid, as you can see. Okay, so most of the things that you did so far, they are very, very small. You can still doing that. If you want, you can model things on a very small scale, and then you can rescale things to be on real scale proportions, okay, or at least roughly with the real scale size. Okay, how can I do that? So basically you need to have a reference, and the best reference to this kind of thing, as you can see, I modeled everything using the same logic. So everything here was modeled using centimeters as the measure. But to be absolutely sure that I was modeling things using real scale, I followed the measures from IKEA. All of those objects, the armchair and the lamp, you find those objects inside IKEA. This small guy here as well, you will find this thing on IKEA. So it's kind of very easy to get the measures there and try to reproduce. And I did that, by the way, part by part. I put the parts separately, and in this case I have to be very clear about that. I also used n-gons. Okay, n-gons are horrible for animation, are horrible for a series of things, but now I am allowing you to use n-gons if you want. But to use n-gons, you have to be very clear that about something. So they work very well on very straight faces like this, but they will not work very well on certain situations. So be aware that although you can use n-gons, if you use n-gons, you might find some problems during rendering or lighting if this surface is not a hard surface, okay? So usually I not allow that, but in this case I'm going easy on you. So if you want to use any guns, you are allowed to use, but I prefer if you not use any guns. So be aware of that. So try to avoid any guns if you think that this object is good enough to be rendered without any problems, and this in this case is going to be rendered very well, because it's a very straight piece, you know. There's no problem whatsoever, but you have to be aware that you might find limitations during rendering, okay? For objects like this, I try to avoid any guns because I'm going to subdivide this object. If I intend to subdivide something, I will avoid any guns automatically, okay? Eventually, this guy can have triangles, but in this case, there's no triangles whatsoever, okay? But I already showed you how to deal with that as well. So one of my videos was about how to fix problems with meshes, and I showed you tools to detect and to solve problems like that, okay? So let's talk about how to be sure that you are working on real scale, okay? So let me show you something here. I have this guy, this is a base mesh, this is a human base mesh, then this guy have human measures. How do I know that? So let me show you something very important. There is a tool here. Let's go close to his feet. He is on top of the ground. I'm going to give you this mesh, by the way. And let's activate the snap to grid, and let's go to create measures, actually measuring tools and distance tool, okay? I'm going to click here in any point of the grid and straight on this line on any point, okay? Doesn't matter where. I did that because I want to create two locators. He's going to create those two locators here, okay? Locators are empty objects. They are not rendered in any possible way. And there is this measure here. So I know that from this point to the center of this cross here, by the way, the thing is three-dimensional, okay? There's it's a three-dimensional kind of point in the space. This is a very cool way to create a object that you can select, because basically if you have a group, you don't have any shape on the group, so you cannot select groups here on the interface, okay? The groups usually have just the transform node. A node have the transform node and also a small shape and no renderable shape. So that's why some people like to use locators instead of using groups, but still I use groups. I'm going to take this point here, and I'm going to move this point towards the top of the character, okay? Close to the head of the character. So if you are with your snap to grid activated and go to the top of the character, so this line here, you will see that the measure of this character is 1 meter 79 centimeters, 78, 79 centimeters. So this is roughly the size of an average human. Okay, so if I take, for example, my armchair here and this guy and isolate both, I know that this guy is using similar proportions compared to this chair. So this chair, this guy is absolutely perfect, you know, for this chair. If he sits, he's going to sit on the chair. So everything is working fine. So you can compare, for example, let me go outside of this thing. You can compare the window. So the window is a very good reference. If you go up here, you will see that this is a big window. I did a big window, okay? I modeled this cool window with some details here and here. So it's, again, it's a very cozy and small place, and I put a lot of love on the objects that I'm using. I'm not using a lot of objects, as you can see here, but they have a good amount of details. When they don't have a good amount of details, so for example, the cup here, let me isolate this guy. The cup do not have a lot of divisions, okay? But if I select this guy and then hit 3, you will see that it's going to subdivide pretty well, okay? There's a small problem with this mesh here. We probably have to reverse the mesh and fix this problem with the mesh, okay? But the mesh itself was built to be subdivided, okay? Eventually, you can find problems on your meshes, which is perfectly normal. It's just a matter of going there and fix the problem. So in this case here, there's a small hole here. I have to fix that, and I will fix that before subdividing, okay? So I could spend more time modeling a beautiful object like this, but I don't need. Again, I need a lot of objects to tell a story, and I already have a lot of objects, okay? One last tip, and there's nothing to do with real scale. As I said, I'm going to give you the human reference here. I'm going to give the OBJ file. You just have to go to File, Import, and bring this guy inside your scene and compare your objects to the scale of this guy to, you know for sure that your objects are not big or too small, okay? One last thing I would like to show you is my small plant. I have this very interesting plant here. Let me go close, isolate, and I used the texture modifier. It's a kind of displacement here, but it's not a displacement. As you can see, it's a mesh being disturbed to create this thing. When you subdivide, you see that it looks like ground. When I put a texture here, it's going to be beautiful because the thing already have a little bit of distortion, but this plant is going to be on the corner of the room, okay? And the leaves itself, they're fairly simple. You're not seeing the other side because, it's just one-sided object. I could put two sides, of course, but I don't need two, okay? I can create a material that is capable of rendering both sides, okay? If you want to know how to do that, you can research on how to create materials capable of rendering back and the back side of the polygons as well. So this can be very easy to solve during the render time, okay? So you don't have to worry too much about that. But if you want to create a small extrude on this guy just to kind of create a thickness and solve this problem, it's even better, okay? But to save some polygons, I decided to let the thing like this. If you want to create plants, and this is something cool, you have to know that anyway. If you want to create plants, you can use a feature inside Maya called Paint Effect. To use Paint Effect, you have to go to a window. Let me see, General Editors, maybe. 1 second. Let me see. I think it's not Acid. I think it's the Content Browser. Sorry. If you go to Window Content Browser, they move from General Editors to Content Browser. The Content Browser is a very cool place, and you can find a similar guide to this one here. If you don't want to wait for me to download this guy, you can try this guy here. So for example, if I get this guy here, you see that he have like a very similar position. It's a full character, of course, and you can use this guy on your scene as a way to analyze the size of the scene, the scale of the scene. It's totally fine if you want to use that. If you want to use mine, I'm going to give you this mesh. It's a very simple mesh. I use this mesh as a starting point for modeling, sculpting. But let's go back to the content process because I would like to show you something else, okay? You have a lot of things that you can use here, by the way. Inside Paint Effect, you have, for example, a bunch of things, including trees. Or if you go to plants, you will find a bunch of plants, and this thing here exists inside Maya since the beginning of Maya. It's a pretty old technology, and it's basically do what the name implies. It's a technology that allows you to create vegetation based on painting things on the screen. Okay, so you kind of draw something like a line, you know, and Maya grows things for you. It's kind of interesting. So you can play with this thing. It's super interesting. But to use this guy, you have to use this thing and convert to polygons. Otherwise, you will not be able to render this thing whatsoever. Okay, so for example, let's go to trees here. I'm going to take. Let me see. I will take. maybe this one here. Okay, double click on the thing, and right away your mouse becomes this. Okay, this is the Paint Effects mouse, as you can see on your perspective. If you click and drag, just click and drag, you will create those things. They're kind of weird right now because of the way we created them. But if you go close, you will see that they kind of behave like trees. We just have to change a bunch of parameters. This can be cool, this can be boring, it depends on you. Okay, if you go to the attribute editors, you have here on the birch sample, you have a lot of settings to change this guy. Okay, so you have things related with the brush itself, you have twists that you can apply, you have the mesh itself, you have the thorns, you can add information, you can change information. So there is a lot of parameters here. I'll not be able to cover all those things for you, but you can try to mess with the parameters to see what you can get. Okay, if you don't like, what you can do is you can delete this thing and you can go again to Window Content Browser and you can find another thing like plants, whatever, and you can take those things and you can right away click and drag and see that you can paint literally and see the result on your screen. So this was the starting point for that plant that I created. Okay, the problem is what you are seeing here on the screen is not exactly renderable. Okay, it's not renderable at all. If you were to Arnold, let me see, I think I don't have Arnold tab here. This is not a problem. If you go here, you can create a Skydome light. Okay, and if you try to render this thing, I will render this using the Arnold viewport. By the way, I have V-Ray because I started to work with V-Ray again for a job. And let's stop this thing and let's start again, and then let's try to render. You will see that you're not seeing anything. Okay, this thing is not rendering at all. If you try to render this thing like this, okay, and if you think that you are going to render anything here, you are mistaken. So for example, let's go to the render, and Arnold is going to try to render, but he's not capable of rendering anything because we literally don't have something that Arnold understands. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to select the stroke, okay, the result of the stroke, and we have to go to modify, convert, and that is a option here called Paint Effects to Polygons. Okay, Paint Effect to Polygons. My tip for you is try to keep the quad output and try to keep this number here under a huge value. So for example, by default, this number is 100,000 polygons, which is way too much. But if you convert this guy, he's not going to reach exactly that number. It's just a way to, you know, prevent problems. And now you will see that you have by the way, this is corn. This is literally corn. But you have meshes right now, and you can finally, if you go to Arnold, you can render this thing using Arnold, and you see that you will be able to visualize some things. Okay, if you're not seeing, this is because of the material, so you have to select everybody, and you have to assign a new material, in this case Arnold, and it can be a Arnold, a standard. And if you change the color, just to quick test this thing and go again to Arnold, render, you will see that you are rendering the plants. So this trick is cool because you can kind of start modeling things using this technology. It's not exactly very good or very realistic. It depends on a series of settings that you have to, you know, tweak and mess. You can spend some time tweaking this thing, but again, that's my last tip for that. I'm going to finish this video here, thanking you once again for all the patience, all the support, and saying that I had a lot of fun on this course. and also saying that I will be back on the beginning of January, and I will probably do like a Q&A session about this assignment if you want to talk about any difficulties or problems or something like that. Okay, I'm going to release the video now, and the assignment will probably be released on the before Christmas. To be honest, I'm not sure exactly when, but on the next few days I will release this new assignment. If you have any questions, please reach me on MS Teams and I will be available to talk about. Okay, so thank you very much. See you.